Yeah.
Well, and Mike, I'm sorry, go ahead, Willie.
I was just going to say the president's attack was that Colonel Vindman is a, quote, never Trumper. There's, of course, no evidence for that. It almost goes without saying there's no evidence for that. And I thought it was interesting. We asked yesterday morning, would congressional Republicans fall in line with this line of attack on Colonel Vindman, that he was somehow a double agent because he speaks Ukrainian or whatever Sean Duffy was trying to say on CNN yesterday? I didn't see a lot of Republicans going there. They went other places. No. They tried to distract. It was very interesting that it was almost limited to the TV talkers who had no stakes in it except to protect Donald Trump on television. When confronted with this, I didn't see a lot of congressional Republicans willing to go after the credibility of Colonel Vindman.
In fact, they defended him.
Yeah.
Let's take a look.
Now, I also want to say a word about something else that's been going on over the course of the last several hours and last night, which I think is also shameful. And that is questioning the patriotism, questioning the dedication to country of people like Mr. Vindman, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who will be coming today, and others who have testified. I think that we need to show that we are better than that as a nation. Their patriotism, their love of country. We're talking about decorated veterans who have served this nation, who have put their lives on the line. And it is shameful to question their patriotism, their love of this nation, and we should not be involved in that process.
I thank him for his service. I think his commitment to this country, but he is wrong in this.
I'm not going to question the patriotism of any of the people who are coming forward.
It's absurd, disgusting, and way off the mark. This is a decorated American soldier, and he should be given the respect that his service to our country demands.
So, Mike Barnicle, you have Liz Cheney talking about how shameful this was yesterday morning. Mitt Romney said it was disgusting. And I thought it was very interesting what Mitch McConnell said, and it was actually very important what Mitch McConnell said. He didn't just defend Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. He said, I'm not going to question the patriotism of any of these people coming forward. Here you had, again, Donald Trump and Republicans trying for some time to do great violence to the whistleblower statutes that are supposed to keep our government, talk about keeping it transparent and keeping corruption out of it. And Mitch talked about how we shouldn't question the patriotism of any of these people coming forward. I thought that was very significant. Also, just as a side note, and Mika will agree with me here, I've been unbelievably harsh on Mitch McConnell for very good reason. He had one of the more moving, moving remembrances of Elijah Cummings in the Capitol. But think about the message. We always talk about the message that Donald Trump sends across the world, the bad message. Think about the message this is sending to our allies across the world. It reminds me of a guy who came up to me several years ago and he said, you Americans get it wrong all the time. He said, but in the end, it's like a Hollywood movie. You somehow right the ship and end up where you're supposed to be. Think about the message that these staff members can come forward, tell the truth, and bring transparency to this process. I think at the end of the day, we're talking about ending corruption in Ukraine. Mike, I think this message that Vindman sends and this entire process sends, that's the message that America wants to get out there. Not that Donald Trump is going to go down politically, but that in America, at the end of the day, whistleblowers can come out, they can be protected, and yes, even Republicans will defend them.
Joe, what's interesting, there were two levels of great interest in this story when it comes to Colonel Vindman. One, obviously, is his courage in coming forward. It takes a lot. He still works at the NSC in the White House. It takes a lot for him to come forward. Coupled with that is his personal story. And when you see Colonel Vindman right there coming into the Capitol, at the top of his medal bracket on his left-hand side of his chest there is something that very few people have, that you really don't go out of your way to get. It's called the Combat Infantry Badge. I know that Sean Duffy does not have one. It means you've been shot at, you've been in an active combat situation, but it's his personal story combined with the fact that he has the courage to come forward, that I think would rivet the attention of people around the globe when they think about it or when they hear about it. He came to America with his twin brother, his father, and his grandmother when he was 3 years of age. His family built a life in this country. He joined.
Didn't they escape the Soviet Union?
Yes, yes, they did. They
escaped the Soviet Union, Laura Ingraham. Escaped the Soviet Union, John Yoo. Escaped the Soviet Union, Sean Duffy.
Their mother died. Their father worked multiple jobs.
Yes.
And then worked on trying to learn English at night. This is how much this family wanted to be in America. And came here for the values of America, Mike.
And what did the country mean to them? The country meant so much to them and means so much to them on a daily basis. The things that most of us who were born here take for granted meant great things for them and his brother, both of them in the military. And Colonel Vindman's children, 2 of them, in the military. Clint, this is a uniquely American story.
It's also just keeps bringing up, why does the White House want to destroy the reputation of every entity of the government that is dealing with Russia or Ukraine? If it's the FBI counterintelligence division that's working against Russian espionage, if it's this U.S. Army lieutenant colonel who is our Ukraine expert, he is our Russia expert. He served in Moscow, he served in Kiev, he served on the battlefields. If it's Bill Taylor, the U.S. ambassador, who was picked as an appointee by Trump, or if it's the U.S. intelligence community's whistleblower, when you look across the board, it has decimated, absolutely decimated our ability to do anything in terms of countering Russia, dealing with Ukraine. How could we ever be a trusted partner? And this Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, he is our guy to do that. He has served, Ambassador McFaul was talking about last night. He's worked with all of our top diplomats. So now you look at this gentleman, is he going to be able to go back into the White House and effectively perform his job? Surely he's going to be scrutinized, because we've seen how petty the White House has been to these personnel who have gone and done their job and served their country.
You know, let me ask you this, Clint. I had a good friend offer up a theory on all of this, and I'm just wondering. It certainly sounds like something that somebody who wanted to help Russia would do. But you know, everybody's focusing, looking at the top level of Donald Trump trying to get intel against one of his political opponents. But my friend said, look below that. What if Donald Trump had succeeded in getting the Ukrainian government to politicize this process? They would then automatically divide Washington. They would lose all Democratic support for any future military aid. And it actually would be a brilliant play by Putin and the Russians, or by people who wanted to help the Russians, that you corrupt Ukraine. You prove that they're still corrupt and they are unworthy of military aid or any other sort of aid by even getting them involved in the process. So if you're Vladimir Putin, you win if they help with the political espionage, or whatever, John, you might call it, because you've corrupted that government and made them unworthy of getting future military aid.
That's exactly right, Joe. And think about it, for going into 2020. We're just about 1 year from the election. We've been talking since the last election about Russian interference in 2016. And look what we've handed the Russians. All they would have to do at this point is come up with any sort of compromise, any sort of false material or placement, and drop it into the Ukrainian media system. And what do you think would happen? A Biden smear would take off immediately overseas. And what would we have to do? We would immediately have to assess it. Is it true or false? That gives them an enormous amount of power to go ahead and interfere in election 2020. And what would we expect our country to do? We watch our leaders right now, FBI, NSA, Cyber Command, DHS. They're all being told you have to defend election 2020. They can't do anything to defend that whenever the White House is actively looking for compromising material on their political opponent, and they're doing it at the behest of the White House.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.